Hi Billy, us newbies are so confused. Living man, crown, corporation. It's also very complicated. Is there any way you could make this easier for us to understand, please?
Well, yes, and I'll try to make it as simple as I can. We'll go through the very basics, and hopefully by the end of this, you may have a clearer understanding of what is happening to us as humans. And it's all about us being equal under the law. If we're all equal, how come others can control us? A very perplexing situation. But they know it's all about our status. Okay, so if we understand our status or standing, then there's not much they can do. Once we know who we are and what we are, then the rules change quite dramatically. So we start off as living, and the first part of the newborn to appear is the crown.
When the jester sang for the king and queen in a coat he borrowed from James Dean and a voice that came from you and me. Oh, and while the king was looking down, the jester stole his thorny crown. The courtroom was adjourned. No verdict was returned. And
Okay, so the the jester stole the thorny crown. They tell you everything in not only in the Bible, but also in songs. They tell us in movies, books, everywhere. Okay, so how did this happen? It happened with Romans 9:11 and 12. And just for now, the elder shall serve the younger. Now we need to learn who the elder and the younger are. Okay, the elder shall serve the younger. The elder is living, or the given name, and that's you and me. Okay, this is how we're going to learn our status, because there is another character in this, and that is when the two twins were in the womb, they were fighting for the birthright. But the younger somehow stole the birthright. While the king was looking down, the jester stole our thorny crown. Okay, so the younger is the surname or the crown, and we will serve the younger, but only if something happens. So we'll find out what that is. So we'll look at part 11 of Romans now. For the children being not yet born, neither having done any good or evil, that the purpose of God according to election might stand, not of works, but of him that calleth. Okay, what is election? The act of, and this is from Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition. Election, the act of choosing or selecting one or more from a greater number of persons, things, courses, or rights. Okay, so we can make an election to be the elder or combine the elder with the younger. And if we combine the elder with the younger, we shall serve the younger. This is where we elect to be the living or trustee for the deceased estate. So the moment we take the father's name, we're joining by election and we lose our rights. Now they can administer our estate. The confusion? Let's look at this. This is kind of representative of the crown or of the Queen of England. And there's another crown too, the Crown City of London. But these are only figureheads. They are agents for the false crown. And that's the placenta, the surname. And they are only figureheads for it. They get paid handsomely to do it. The Crown City of London is the chief administrator for all these deceased estates, and the Queen is the figurehead for the Crown City of London, but only if we elect to use the surname, which it tells us in Romans. Now, are the agents commissioned officers? They are indeed, and they do receive commission for what they do, only if we don't know our status. So I'm teaching you your status in this to avoid all the pitfalls of having to pay for things unnecessarily by us becoming the trustee. Now, in all the pirate movies, are always depicting a hidden treasure chest, and they're sitting on the treasure chest because this is what they do. That treasure chest there is the Treasury Direct Account, which came about through the Sedekah Act 1666, which I won't go into here. I've been into that many times. But so it's named after the placenta. The trust was set up, the Treasury Direct Account was set up that the pirates loot, and the birth certificate was issued in the name of the father. So now we know that the placenta has a trust and a birth certificate was issued in the name of the father. Now, the first time you go in anywhere under the rule of election, you have chosen to be the combined trust. Okay, the trust includes the living and the dead. Trust was set up by the company, and we have a beneficial interest in that. But they do change roles from time to time, so we'll come to that. Now, the trust is under administration, and every one of us as a security is under administration. And you probably heard Donald Trump quite often saying, not under my administration. They tell you that they are administering those trusts, and their duty is to make money for those trusts. Now, if we're silly enough to combine the living name with the deceased estate name, then we come under their administration. So let's make sure that we know exactly what a trust is, and then we can avoid becoming the trustee. The settlor or the grantor is the person who creates the trust and brings it into legal existence. Now, we did not set up that trust. Therefore, we can never be executor or anything else with that trust. We want to stay as the beneficiary because there are good things. So the essentials of a trust are, number one is a trustee, number two is trust property, which happens to be us, and number three is beneficiary or beneficiaries, which also happens to be us. Now, we need to stay in that beneficial role if we want to obtain the advantages of that trust. So we need to understand how our role changes from beneficiary to trustee. And if you understand these simple rules, then you're not going to get caught out. You're not going to be paying fines and things like that. This is how it changes, by accepting the name of the Father. Once again, I come back to Romans 9:11. Oh, 9:11. Does that number ring a bell, guys? 9:11. They're telling you all the way through 9:11. Here's how it happens. The living plus the Father's name equals the pirates. Oh, we can come in and plunder under 9:11. You never forget those numbers, will you? 9:11. So how can we stop the plunder? By knowing the agent-principal relationship. If you understand this, actually I have to stop using that word, understand, because I'm going to come to that shortly. Agents need to accept the role of trustee. This is how simple it is. Knowing the agent-principal relationship, they want us to accept the role of trustee. Trustee always pays. Now, this is from Black's Law, 4th edition. Agent is a person authorized by another to act for him, one entrusted with another's business, one who represents and acts for another under the contract or relation of agency. Oh, a new word has popped up here, relation. The doctrine of relation is that principle by which an act done at one time is considered by a fiction of law to have been done at some antecedent period. If we go to the last sentence there, the last proceeding which consummates the conveyance is held for certain purposes to take effect by relation as of the day when the first proceeding was had. So the moment that we applied for a birth certificate or a driver's license or a bank account, that is when the doctrine of relation kicked in. Now, anything that is a fiction can be undone, and if we go back to Black's Law Dictionary, we will find that relation shall never make good a void grant, or anything that is fictitious or false or misleading can be undone with a device, which is a will. So if we use our will and testament, we can undo that relation. Okay, we can undo it. It's not easy, but it can be done. So if we make a will to get rid of the relation between the living and the dead, that is undone according to Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition. Now, we've already covered Black's Law definition of agent, but if we look at New Zealand Law Dictionary, 8th edition, agent, a person authorized expressly or impliedly. Okay, expressly means that every part of the contract is revealed or not hidden from you, or impliedly means by your actions. If you, when an agent comes to you and says, oh, look, here's a bill that you haven't paid, and you act in a way that you don't rebut their presumption, then they say, oh, great, you're acting as the name of the Father. And so now you become the trustee and you are going to pay. However, the trustee, a person to whom an estate is transferred, devised, or bequeathed in trust for another, that other being called the beneficiary. We really want to stay as the beneficiary. And we can, because privity of contract, and here we go with relation again, the relations subsisting between the parties to the same contract. Under privity of contract, only parties to a contract are legally bound by and entitled to enforce it. Now, anyone who comes at us, such as Baycorp or any debt collection agency, they're not a party to the contract. They have only bought a debt, and they're trying to trick us into paying for that debt. So under privity of contract, if they're not a party to it, one letter will get rid of Baycorp or any debt collection agency. And the same goes for student loans. Under privity of contract, you can get rid of all student loans or anything for that matter. Okay, so the relation between the parties. Now, there are two parties involved. There is the living and the dead, the given name and the surname. Those are the only parties to a contract when they come after us. But if we sign a contract with another man to man, then we are the only two parties to that contract, and no one can come in between us. No court, no lawyer, no one. Especially lawyers, tell them to, anyway, I'll save my language. When does the relationship change? This is when an agent trustee in trying to earn a commission by making money for the trust approaches us with with a bill or a claim. Could be a traffic stop, the Inland Revenue, any one of the government agencies with a commission to engage us. Our role changes from beneficiary to principal. Now, if you get this right, you're going to be safe. Only when an agent approaches us to make a commission does our role change from beneficiary to principal. This is the agent-principal relationship. Like I told you in real estate, if you go to an agent, they must follow your instructions. The agent's only trying to trick us into becoming the trustee. The trustee must pay. So unless we know the rules, we end up paying. All right, it's that simple, guys. If you know your status, that you have now become the principal, then you never have to pay. Understand that. When anyone comes and presents us with a bill, they're coming in as an agent. That changes our status to principal. The moment we ask that question, either by letter or in asking a question to them, are we, if you're the agent, are we the principal? Hello, our status has changed from being a dummy to being of high, and here it is here. Principal, highest in rank, authority, character, importance, or degree. Okay, so we are the highest in rank. Now, if you look at section 4, highlighted there in blue, a person for whom another becomes surety. Okay, so if they're coming after the trust and we know that we're the principal, who becomes surety for us? We're the principal, we're the living. There is another party involved who becomes surety, and that is the dead. The deceased estate, the surname, becomes a surety for the principal. Learn this, guys. You're on your way to setting yourself free. Just to help you on your journey, we're going to look at a couple of things in the Crimes Act. And number 9, no one shall be convicted of any offence at common law. So the whole Crimes Act does not affect us. No one shall be convicted of any offence at common law. Nothing in the Crimes Act affects us. Oh wait, it might. Nothing in this section shall limit or affect the power of authority of the House of Representatives to punish for contempt. Oh, so there's only one crime in the Crimes Act, and that's for contempt. They can only punish us for contempt. How are they going to do that? The Bible once again tells us, Matthew 5:33, again, ye have heard that it has been said by them of old time, thou shalt not forswear thyself, but shalt perform unto the Lord thine oaths. But I say unto you, swear not at all, neither by heaven, for it is God's throne. Okay, so the first thing that they do when you get to court is, do you swear to tell the truth? Now you have sworn against their rule book. The Bible is the rule book of the courts, of the system, of the company that runs the system that we operate under. If we swear against that, we have cursed their book. Now we are in contempt of court. Now I'm not going to read all this out, but under the Crimes Act, this is what they are doing. They are dealing in slaves. So pause it and go through it, but if you look particularly at the bottom two, debt bondage and serfdom, they are trying to make slaves of us. So if they are sworn to uphold statute, you just ask them the question, are you going against Section 98 of the Crimes Act? And even better, Section 240, obtaining by deception or causing loss by deception. Now that we know that they are deceiving us and tricking us into believing that we are the full name, which John Henry Doe, we're not. We're only John Henry, or the given names, and by deceiving us, they're causing loss to us. So the question needs to be asked in your letters, are you trying to obtain by deceiving us? You're causing loss by deception. They don't like that. Now, even further, because there's been a whole raft of new supposed laws that have come out, but after the commencement of this Act, the Common Law of England, so far it was part of the laws of New Zealand, shall continue to be part of the laws of New Zealand. So the common law still applies in New Zealand. And they cannot do, as you've seen earlier, that they can't do anything under the Crimes Act because common law is the law of man. But they gave themselves a little outer in 1988, power to make subordinate legislation, where after the commencement of this Act, any imperial enactment that is part of the New Zealand confers powers on the sovereign to make subordinate legislation. Okay, they gave themselves the right to make subordinate legislation, but some of the legislation is not even subordinate legislation. Some of it is man and dates, and others is secondary legislation, because they know that they can't do anything. And the quicker you guys learn this, then you will not be worried about some of the things that seem to be happening around the country at the moment. Okay, the common law of England is still the law of the land, and they only have subordinate legislation. So the moment that you stand under your own rights, they cannot do a thing. Now, if we look to the schedule under the Imperial Laws Application Act, it says exactly the same as it does in the Bible, or slightly different words, but it says without respect of persons. The king willeth and commandeth that common right be done to all, as well as poor as rich, without respect of persons. Okay, so when you realize that the person is the surname, is the placenta, is the crown, is dead, is under administration, we are not the person. So when we do not treat it with respect, all of a sudden we are free. Agents, trustees, because of their knowledge of the law, will try to trick us into contractual agreement and thereby earn a commission at our expense. But a few simple questions, either in writing or spoken, will generally see them give up because they're lazy. They don't like to work for their money. All they rely on is tricks, and if you put a couple of words to them, they're going to give up very, very quickly, because they can be sued. So the first question I would ask any one of them, are you an agent of the Crown? If they're an agent, that makes you principal. Are you sworn to uphold statute? They are. If they operate under statute, they are sworn to uphold statute. So they must obey their own in-house rules, which are the statutes. Are you aware of the laws against misrepresentation? They are. That's why they give up. They will go quiet. Okay, now a new act that you probably haven't seen, Contract and Commercial Law Act. Sections 36 to 39 have effect in place of the rules of the common law and of equity governing the circumstances in which a party to contract may rescind it or treat it as discharged for misrepresentation. So the moment that you quote this section of the Contract and Commercial Law Act to them, you may rescind any contract that you have done. Now, we've had a look at a few in there which you can rescind. But for the sake of brevity, we will let you go back through this, and you may need to go back through this several times to see the intricacies of what I'm saying. Now, a judge can only see fiction. He can see the surname, he can see the person, and he can see the Sedekei Vai trust, which is why they can never give full disclosure. Because if they did, if you said to the judge, have you given full disclosure? I have heard no mention of the Sedekei Vai trust. Oopsie. Judge cannot see man. He cannot see the given name. He cannot see the living. Because they're a fiction, they can only see fiction. But men, on the other hand, can only deal with men. And Matthew 5:25 tells us, agree with thine adversary quickly, whilst thou art in the way with him, lest at any time the adversary deliver thee to the judge, and the judge deliver thee to the officer. Okay, so when we're dealing with a man, be honest and straightforward and agree quickly. But when we're dealing with a fiction, judge can only see the fiction. They can only administer deceased estates, which is why we need a lawyer to represent us as a fiction to the court. They say represent, but re is a prefix. So when it is put to present us to the court, they have to represent us as the fiction, or the Sedekei Vai, or the placenta, or the crown. Most importantly, whenever we are being questioned or faced with a stressful situation, if you can remember this phrase, you're going to be fine. I don't understand. Anytime they ask you, do you understand? Say, I don't understand. Now they'll get violent. They'll explain it really carefully the second time. The third time they'll get violent and threaten you, make all sorts of threats, because it means I don't stand under you. Now a lot of them don't really know this. Only the people at the top, the very top, know a lot of this stuff that I'm giving you. But a lot of them know that they must follow rules. If those rules go out the door, then they'll resort to fear and force. Okay, now on just to end this off, on Tuesday the 11th of January there is going to be a seminar in Wanganui, and I'll put the details down below. So hopefully this has helped you on your journey into freedom.